All right. Good morning, everyone. I see we still have a few people coming in. Take your time. You don't need to run. So good morning. My name is Alicia Pulliam. I'm really excited for our very first session for the Event Planning and Strategies track. I will be the MC for the entire track, so you will see my face again and again and again. Hopefully, you all will come back to the sessions that we have here. Just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Alicia Pulliam. I'm an MC. I'm an actress. I'm also a veteran of the U.S. Navy, and I'm beyond excited to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you. So just a quick little housekeeping notes. If you need to use the restroom, it's right outside the doors. Make a left and another left around the corner. Also, we have water stations that are there by the restrooms. So if you could, this is mine. Sorry, put it in front of you. Please remember to take your bottles with you and go ahead and fill those up. And then you'll want to scan the QR code on the back so that you can make donations for Fill It Forward, and we appreciate you for that. You'll see that we have a microphone here. This is for our questions. So we want to make sure that we have all of our questions spoken into the mic so that way we can record the audio. If for some reason you can't come up to the microphone, that's okay. Just use your outside voice, and we'll have one of our panelists to repeat the question on your behalf. Okay, let's see, what else do I have on my list? Ooh, I think that's it. Yes. One more reminder for the badges. So if you didn't scan your badge before you came in, if you could please do that before you leave. All right, so that's enough spring cleaning for me. Now it is time for me to go ahead and introduce our host for today's panel. So our host is Sasha Summer Cousineau. Did I get it right? I'm working on it. Sasha Summer Cousineau is the owner of Rebel Rouser Events. She's also a fundraising auctioneer and MC. I'm sweating bullets being here in front of her right now. Woo. She's also a wedding officiant based here in Seattle, Washington. Sasha believes that her clients make up the heart and moral compass of our communities, which is why she is living her occupation, which I will be stealing, yes, her occupation every time she gets to serve local nonprofit organizations and educational institutions. A lifelong performer passionate about social justice, racial equality, and feminism, Sasha is a skilled, experienced, and caring event professional who has a 360-degree view of events. Whether in person or online, you can bet your bottom dollar, I added that. I like that. You can bet your bottom dollar that Sasha will bring her experience, talent, sparkle, those fabulous pants, and genuine care to her work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sasha Summer Cousineau. She needs the mic. And also, apologies for saying ladies and gentlemen. Everyone, please welcome Sasha Summer Cousineau.
Ooh, thank you for that fabulous introduction, and I'm so happy to be in community with another skilled and fabulous MC. That is a beautiful thing. Good morning, everyone. Who's had their coffee? Make some noise. If you haven't had your coffee, don't make any noise. It's fine. We're going to wake you up. Here you are, friends. You've arrived at Spilling the Tea, a non-profit fundraising event's tips, tricks, trends, and traditions. Say that 5 times really fast. I would like to introduce you to our panelists. So friends, how about you tell us your name, your business, your pronouns. I use she, her, by the way. And one fun fact about you. Go.
I'm Mary Davidson. My business is EP Events. I use she, her pronouns, and so we do fundraising events along with all these wonderful people up here. And an interesting fact, okay, so we didn't think about this beforehand, so I gotta pull something out really good. You said interesting, so this is interesting. When I was in high school, I went to a casting call to be on Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, and I got a call back, which is cool, right? But then they said I would have to move to LA, and so my parents said no. So I could have been famous, and I'll never know.
You could have been peers with Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears.
Could have, right?
All right.
They're just right up there. Dream come true.
All right, who's next on the microphone?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ghazala Uradnik. I am the owner and founder of GFS Events. So we are also a event management company for nonprofits. And fun fact, you threw this one at us. I don't have a lot of fun facts, I don't think, but I'm going to give you I'm going to just tell you a little bit about me in the sense that I am a plant killer. The team can attest to that. All the plants in my office are often dead, and then my husband has also said stop touching plants at home. So I'm not allowed to touch them, water them, anything. Just don't even go near them. So Yeah, I'm trying
So
I'm
I
trying
won't
to,
be buying you a plant for the next gift I give you.
probably a good idea.
Heard it, heard it. All right, who's next?
Good morning, everyone. My name's Alex Martin. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the owner at Synchronicity Events. So we do events for nonprofit organizations, same as all these other amazing business women up here. So about 85% of the events we do have a fundraising goal, but we also do some conferences and some festivals and other community gatherings. So it's just a joy to see you all here this morning. Thank you for joining us. Do scan that badge because we want to keep proving to the show that people care about these nonprofit sessions. So I know it sounds like boring, but please scan if you didn't on the way in. And I just want to say we're spilling the tea, so some of you have tea in front of you. That's for you. And if you sat at a seat with no tea, just steal some tea on the way out from an empty seat. I want to make sure those all get taken. Thank you. And your fun fact. Oh, fun fact. My child left for college in August, which means I'm a wild creature now, and I do everything the way I want it. That's my story.
I'm DC Evans. I'm the owner of Kind & Company Events, again, nonprofit event management company, and as well as conferences, social events, any kind of engagement where people need a little bit of extra help to get their mission out there. I use she, her pronouns. Fun fact, let me think. I've been trying to think while I've been up here. I'm like, oh yeah, I kill plants too. My child just left for college. I'm an empty nester. I guess the only thing that I could say that people probably don't know about me is I am the oldest of 7 children, which means I was a mother when I was a young person. So I like taking care of people. Yeah, I guess that's it. So.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for those extended remix introductions. I appreciate you working with me on the fly. I'm not going to do that to all of you, but I do want to know who's here. So either raise a hand or make some noise or do whatever your energy allows for at this time of day if you are a nonprofit staff person. Amazing. Hello, friends. Welcome. We're so happy to see you. If you are any other nonprofit type of human, board member, volunteer, any other nonprofit humans. Okay. Hello. Thank you for being here. All right. If you are an event planner, let's see. Where are you, event planners? Oh, holy wow. All right. Hello, friends. Hello, colleagues. So nice to see you. And if you are any other type of event professional, there we go. Okay, so I'd say we're hitting our target audience right off the bat. Very good. Thank you for that. Now, let's get into the meat of this sandwich. Here we go. So for our nonprofit friends in the audience, let's just ask, have you all nonprofit folks had a fundraising event recently? Okay, so some of you, raise your hand if you have not had a fundraising event recently. Okay, good to know, good to know. So before these folks even consider doing a fundraising event, what are some of the things that the organization as a whole needs to be thinking about? And I'm gonna toss this first to Mary.
Okay, so I knew this one was coming. I wrote a couple notes on this because I think this is the most important part, considering if you're gonna do a fundraising event before you get into anything. So the first thing that I would say is to talk about if you should even have one. And I think that's a little controversial, especially for people like us who, like, this is our job. We get hired to help with your events. But should you have one? Because if you have always done an event, that's a terrible reason to keep doing it. So there is a lot more that goes into that, thank you. So you can look at the ROI, the return on investment, including staff time, please. A lot of people don't do that. You can go to past surveys, all these things. So just consider if you should be having this event or if there's a better way that you can raise funds. The second thing is that I would say you can consider if it's gonna be a friend raiser or a fundraiser. So is it like more of a community event or is the purpose to raise funds? It could be both, but to have that intentional conversation to actually figure it out. I had a client who changed their mind on this halfway through the planning process, so that was a huge shift. So please have the conversation at the beginning. And the last thing that I'll say is to talk about what your why is. And that sounds so simple, it's your North Star, but I am surprised how many organizations we work with who don't actually have this conversation. So to give you just a little tip, an example is if you're a board, if you have a board or a committee, whoever's helping plan your event, to ask each individual person, like together, everybody's in the room, what success looks like for them, for their event individually. And it is very surprising to hear the responses. And normally, they're on track with each other. And so to have that why conversation, but hearing specifically from your stakeholders that are going to be part of this event, I think is key. So there's others, but I'm going to stop talking, and those are some ideas.
Awesome. Thanks for kicking us off, Mary. Now, full transparency, I actually worked for Alex Martin for 9 years and Go Synchronicity Events. And having worked with you, Alex, for so many years, I know you have some really strong beliefs around this. So I'm hoping you'll share.
Absolutely. Totally. To back up what Mary said, we need to have that conversation at the very first meeting. You know, and I think we can also get even more detailed where it's like, okay, we want to have a fundraising goal. We also might want to have a community goal in terms of like specifically how many people are going to attend, and maybe even what groups are those people representing? Are we going to have our client community represented? Are we going to have our partners in other organizations that are our allies in the community represented? You know, and really going through and making plans for that, so it's not just on the week of the event where you're like, oh, we forgot to invite our best allies, right? So you got to plan that from the beginning. Many of my groups also have like an environmental goal where they're like, we're going to measure something about this. We're gonna make a plan. So just as you're getting together with, we might have accessibility goals. Like, okay, we're going to make sure that every single person that attends feels more than welcome, right? They're not just welcome to come in, but we actually built for them a great experience. So those are, so goals, big picture goals, but also get a little bit linear with it. Like, you know, not just the money goal, but what are the things that are going to help us really portray all our values? And I know we're going to keep talking about this, but just to kind of put it out there from the very start.
Thank you. And I actually also want to add, having been a person who serves nonprofits in a variety of ways for years, that actually full organizational buy-in is really important. It is not enough for the board and executive directors to say, we want to do an event, a fundraising event, and then say, here, youngest staff member in the development department, this is your gift. Run forward, be free. When I have worked as an event planner, when I've worked as onstage talent, and one person shows up to all of our planning meetings, that's a red flag for me each and every time. Events are not a one-person job. And so when I say full organizational buy-in, I mean we have multiple people who have distinguished and different roles of leadership in planning the event internally, even when you're working with a fundraising professional like any of these fabulous humans. Okay, question number 2. Given the importance of making strategic decisions for event planning, what advice do you have for nonprofit organizations looking to navigate the choice between investing in event innovation versus sticking to traditional proven fundraising methods? So we're looking at event innovation versus the tried and true. And DC, I'd like to toss it to you first this time.
A lot of organizations kind of do the thing where if it's not broke, don't fix it. But there are so many new technologies and new reasons to try some new and improved things out there. You know, we started off back in the day with just doing everything through Excel and spreadsheets, and we've graduated to actual auction software. And so, using the new technologies and tools that are out there is actually a good thing. Now, always, just like what I think Mary said earlier, check in with your team, check in with your group. Know if your team is ready to try something new and innovative and and creative in that realm. So.
Thank you, DC. Ghazala, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you have any follow-up on this?
Yes, and to follow up on DC's point, my favorite thing is when a client comes to us and says, hey, we wanted to work with you so we could try something different. We're going to do something really out-of-the-box creative. And then we come up with all these creative ideas, and they're like, oh, we can't do that. We've always done it this way. We've always done it this way. And so I think that's part of it too, is if you want to try different things, then you've got to try different things and think outside the box. And And a couple of examples with innovation are things like, not that I'm a fan of silent auctions. I'm actually not a fan of silent auctions. But if you are going to do something, maybe an online version or mobile bidding, we've gone with some clients, we've gone back and forth where we were like, oh, we're going to do a silent with paper. No, we're going to do online. And then they realize their community can't handle that. So you do have to know who your community is and what they need and what they can handle. And so don't, do something, don't go online with a virtual event, say, if no one's going to be at home watching it. Like, that's just not, it's a waste of money. So think through what you can do and what you should do based on your community as well.
Thank you.
I just
go
wanted to
ahead,
add
DC.
too, we've had customers that have said they want to do an online auction, but they brought all the stuff to the event. And then they said the auction's going to close in 2 days. And I understand, because there is that history, that we're used to doing this way. But also, I think it's important to understand that your team has a limited amount of time and resources too. And so, trying something new is okay. It's fine. We got you.
DC, I appreciate that follow-up because it's not just enough to have the idea, but you have to have the strategy behind it. And I will say, as another event professional, working with the four of you has allowed me to work smarter, not harder. And I know you bring smarter, not harder to your clients' workload as well. So thank you so much for your excellence there. Okay, sticking with the idea of innovation. So when we do events, we're not just in conversation with our internal world, with our staff and with our board. We are also in conversation with all the rest of our stakeholders in the world, right? Our donors, our volunteers, people who maybe want to learn about us, who might be learning about us at the first time. But the reality is, at events, a lot of times who attended last year is the core group of who will attend this year. So, Alex, I'm going to ask you this question. We want to tinker, right? We want to be in a playful and innovative space. How do we manage those community expectations so that when guests arrive, they feel prepared to be playful and joyful with us?
Yeah, this is something we really saw when we came back from lockdown. That so many organizations were like, we just want to go back to exactly what we're comfortable with. We want everyone to walk in and see the exact same tables and the exact same decorations from, they just wanted that comfort. And I think we can really, we can understand the joy of comfort, right? We can understand that, we know what that auction's gonna look like, or we know what that breakfast is gonna feel like, because we've been attending it for 10 years, and we don't wanna throw those things away. But when it comes to looking at something like the ROI on what does it make sense to bring all these auction items, maybe not. So you're gonna make smart choices that are gonna actually support your organization better. And sometimes we just have to communicate well to the guests in advance so they know what to expect. Like, hey, our cocktail hour this year or whatever is gonna feature this performer. And don't mention that there's no silent auction, but just never mention it, and it'll just disappear. It'll just scurry away, and it'll be gone. And don't worry, no one's gonna cry. No one's gonna refuse to attend your event. They're gonna be like, oh, this performer was amazing, and I had more time to visit with my friends because you didn't make me shop for an hour. This is actually, in the end, they're gonna enjoy and appreciate. So we're just picking on the silent auction because we love to pick on it. But anything that you're gonna remove, I would say just remove it, and of course, your internal team is gonna know you removed it, but your guests, just focus on the positive, right? Just tell them what to expect in the positive. Don't lie to them. It's going to be something's not coming. And then I think the other piece in here is as you mentioned before, Sasha, oftentimes the person who's responsible for the event is really not the decision maker, which is super awkward, right? So if you're that staff person or that intern or whomever that's charged with making this thing a success, you may find yourself needing to lead from not the official position of leadership. You may find yourself having to make recommendations to folks on your team around here's what's really going to work. So that's just something to kind of get ready for. You could call it managing up, you could call it lateral leadership, whatever buzzword you want to use. But we see that a lot on event teams because, again, folks that are really in the mix understand what's actually happening, and you're going to have to be bold and tell the people you work with what path you're on and what they can reasonably expect this year.
Looks like you have some
I have
follow-up.
something to add. That was amazing. And when I'm thinking about if you work for a nonprofit here, it does depend, if they have an event team or not. If you are somebody who does other development work, but you're also thrown into events, that's not actually your job. I think that's the case in many cases. Maybe we could challenge you to try one new thing, just one. Like, we've given you a lot of ideas, but I don't want it to be overwhelming because, like we said, you have other things to also be worrying about. But if we could challenge you to try one new thing for your event, there are so many different ways that you can continue to innovate and tinker and make it a great experience. And that's part of why you're here today, probably, right? So you can go on the floor, you can see all the cool ideas. Doesn't mean you have to do all of them. You could just pick one.
More? No. Okay. I will say, Mary, what you just said, I feel that so hard. Frankly, I think the biggest innovation coming out of like post-pandemic event world is actually less is more. Less is more, less is more, less is more. I say it like a broken record to all of my clients, but it's true because before, like 2019 times, we often threw everything at the event, like every single income stream, every single activity. And what I've noticed coming out is that people just don't have the attention span for it. And in fact, most people don't need more stuff. Funny thing for an auctioneer to say, I know. But what they want is connection. And so I say less is more, and ace the things you want to do. Like, get an A+ at it, and then if you decide you want to expand next year, then go ahead and have that moderate and strategic growth, right? But I think the biggest innovation is less is more. Any other follow-up on that topic?
I did just want to say, I love, Mary, how you mentioned only add one thing. I would also challenge you, like, go ahead and delete one thing, right? Like, challenge yourself, hey, this year we're going to delete 2 things and just only add one.
Silent auction.
Say no more.
10 raffle baskets. No, it's fine. It's fine. The event planners are like, girl, I feel you so hard. Okay. So we all are in the business of serving mission-based institutions. And I think we all come to our work because we care for the work that you do in the world. I know that I personally approach my work and have the absolute privilege of taking my values with me everywhere I go. I recognize that as a privilege. I also recognize as a privilege that I don't have to work with any organization whose values are antithetical to mine. So being mission-driven is a core value to me, and I feel like it's a core value to all these fabulous humans sitting on the stage. So as you're starting to work, or as you're working over the years with any nonprofit, how do you ensure that the values and mission of that organization are being effectively communicated, showcased, lifted up, shared? How do we do that in the event land? And I'm gonna ask Ghazala to lead us here.
This is one of my favorite things to do. I love to incorporate an organization's mission into their event. And raise your hands if you're part of an organization that loves themes. Any kind of theme. It can be a Paris or Roaring 20s or whatever. Disco, yes, we've done it all. I think we've all done it all. I love a good theme. I love getting dressed up, all of that. But your organization could be the theme. There's no reason you can't infuse every aspect of what you do into your event. So if you are going to do some kind of activities during that cocktail hour in the beginning, you could use some of those we call them mission-based items. For example, we're working with an arts organization coming up in a couple of weeks, and they wanted to do a silent auction. We're doing a silent auction. I was like, well, what if we also put in a few other items? You host kids over the weekend, and they all need snacks. So what if like $25 to buy snacks for these art students over the weekend? What about art supplies? Another $35 will buy art supplies. So using some of those kinds of things also teaches your guests that they're not just buying a basket. They're not just buying a gift card that they're probably going to throw in a drawer and never use, and maybe give back to you next year. They're actually doing something for you, and there's lots of ways to do that. Not only during that the beginning portion, but then all through. We have all through your event. We have another client who loves the theme. Like, they absolutely love themes, and they go big and bold. One year we were able to convince them to use their mission as the theme, and that was incredibly successful. It was so fun. People, they're a organization that helps paramedics, and so we had set up. We actually had a paramedic van in the space, and people could get inside and look. We had a defibrillator there, and people could actually see how it worked. And so it's something they'd never done before. And guests were like, "Oh, this actually relates to who you are and what you do, and I'm going to hear more about it." So there's lots of unique ways to do that, and I think that you can carry that theme of you into all aspects of all the way through, into your program, because you've got them for 3 to 4 hours potentially. So use all of that time. Don't just use the 5-minute video and the 2-minute ask. Use all of that time in subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways to talk about what you do and why you do it.
Thank you, Ghazala. I love that. Anybody have some follow-up to that piece?
I was just taking the microphone, but I'll say something. No, I love that, and I love that you add the mission, just making sure that that's incorporated. I did have a customer who actually one of their auction items was volunteering for the organization. People got the opportunity to scan the code or write their names down to say they'd volunteer for a few hours throughout the year, and they got to pick the month, and they got to pick the day, and all of those things. So there's all sorts of ways to incorporate your guest into what it is you're trying to do for the night.
Yeah, I'll just say we love to talk about make sure your guests feel really smart, and that arrival time is the perfect time to let people educate themselves, because by the time they're watching the video, or as you mentioned, the person steps on stage to do the ask, I don't want that to be the first time that the guests are thinking about your work. I want them to be already absorbed lots of facts and lots of information, lots of feelings, so that at the point that you're asking them for the money, the only question for them should be, how much am I giving, right? They should already know the value of your impact and the value of being part of your community.
I love this. I love thinking about all the ways that we can take the work that you do out into the world and bring it into the event space. And I've seen so many clients do this incredibly successfully, from the very literal. We have a defibrillator. I know one of our clients brought the fire suit, right? Firefighter suit. So these really literal ways where these are the tools that we work with. Here, human who doesn't typically touch these tools, touch them. But then there's also these really joyful and playful ways that you can do it that are slightly less literal. So I'm thinking of a early learning math organization that I worked with Alex back in the day, who makes play-based learning toys for children. And what they did is they giant-sized it and put it in the reception of their event and had adults playing with big versions of these, which was so stinking silly, but also really fun for people drinking cocktails, So anyway, yes, all the ways that we can bring the work you do outside into the event is a win-win-win. So talking about mission, we're not just demonstrating our mission to people at the event. So many elements of how we event demonstrates our mission as well. And I'm starting to think about, a lot of conversations that have happened in the sector around community-centric fundraising. And how are we living our mission every single day as we engage donors? I think a lot of what community-centric fundraising is asking us to do is to live our values in relationships with donors, and asking donors to question what their values are as they support nonprofits. So this is a juicy topic, and I want to know, community-centric fundraising, events, are they bedfellows? Are they total opposites? I want your hot take on this. Who wants to lead us off?
Okay, yeah, I can kick this off. I recently did a panel where we talked about this a little bit, in the sense that a gala, just by the virtue of a gala and what it is not inclusive. It is very exclusive. Your ticket prices are generally high. You're looking for people who can fill the room with higher end donors, so that you can of course reach your goals. So if you do want to do something like that, and Alex and I talked a little bit about this even last night. Number one, do you do it all year long, right? If you're just going to show face at your event saying, oh, well, hey, I've got a ticket price that's reasonable for a person, and now we're doing community-centric fundraising, that's not it. So if you are, we do have a couple of organizations we work with who incredibly embrace this, and actually one that Sasha, we work together on, they embrace it all the way through the year. They're literally one of the names in their title of their organization is Justice. So they really do embrace it all year long. And then for the event, they do so many different things. Number one, they are looking for vendors who are BIPOC. So, and it's not just a, hey, will you go, find a BIPOC vendor? It's like, let's actually figure out who's in the community who we can support and bring that person in. And then in terms of tickets, again, embracing that, we have a sliding scale. So they're not they're really including everyone. They want everyone to come. And then we also broadcast it because they are an organization that's across the state. So they're able to reach people who can't actually attend. We don't do all of the games and things like that. It's really about that connection that we talked about and learning about the organization. And then in the room, there is that raise the paddle approach, but there's also a more subtle, if you just want to do envelopes, there's lots of ways to give, and no gift is too small. So we don't do the recognition, because that's another thing that I'm sure all of you have done possibly in the past, is that you're recognizing donors at the really higher levels, and then as soon as a paddle goes up in the air, and $1,000 or $250 or $100 could be incredibly meaningful to me. But my name is not read because that's not, meaningful to the organization. So that's how it comes across, right? So that's why I think through ways, if you really want to do that community-centric fundraising, you are going to have to change your approach in not just one way, but multiple ways. And then not just for your event, but across the board all year long is really important too.
I have to give that so many snaps, the all year round. Yes, so many snaps for that. I think events shouldn't stand alone from the rest of your yearly practice. They should not be these silos. They should dovetail into all the rest of your work, all the rest of your development work, all the rest of your programmatic work. It should exist as part and parcel, and that includes our value sets. So you heard Alex talk earlier about sometimes we're looking for our environmental footprint. You can't imagine how much waste happens in of the events industry. I mean, so I love when an organization says these are our values, when they also ask the hard questions about how you're going to do your event. And maybe it means that the event, like one element of it becomes a little bit more work for you. All the more reasons to delete one or two things, like Alex said earlier, right? So that you are living your values as you build the event and then at the event. I want to stick with the topic, if you wish, of community-centric fundraising in relationship to events.
Yeah, I'll just say that later today at 1:05, this group of amazing people, we're going to host another little session with like small workshops, and I'm going to do one on budgeting, and I'm going to start with sponsorship. So come to that if you want to know all my opinions about how we can more equitably engage our corporate partners to support these events and therefore lower those ticket prices, et cetera, and like allow our whole community to come in. So just a little preview of what we're going to do at 1:05. We're going to have radical budgeting. So I'm not going to say too much about that now because I know you all are coming back for that.
Radical budgeting, that's a sexy name. Yes, Ghazala.
Can I add that to that too, in terms of the whole piece about, what is it? What kind of event is this? It's okay to have potentially one exclusive event. It's okay to do that. That's not a bad thing. But if you want to have that inclusivity, then maybe it's a different type of thing, whether it's an event or not an event. It doesn't have to be, maybe your event can't be everything to all people. And that's okay. So if you want to have an incredibly inclusive event, then it's probably not going to be, $150 ticket in a ballroom. But you could do something else if you're trying to, connect and make more of a fundraiser than a fundraiser. That's okay. And so maybe think through that as an option too for you.
Love it. Different events speak to different people. And if we think about our own lives, our own personal networks, right? So many different types of people in them. If we think about who supports a nonprofit with their money, with their time, with broadcasting your message, so many different types of people. So create the events for the people you wish to engage, right? Speak to your audience. Anything else on community-centric fundraising before we move on?
Bowling event. Bowling. Let's go bowling.
That's the answer, everyone. Bowling.
Roller skating.
So I do want to just reflect also, Alex, you said about radical budgeting, but I used to have an employer, I used to work in the nonprofit sector, who said a budget is a moral document. So where you allot your money says a lot about where your values are. Okay, here we go. Shifting gears. Are we ready? Yes, we are. How are mobile donations transforming the fundraising landscape for nonprofit events? One question. Follow-up question, are they truly more effective than traditional methods like raise the paddle? So using our devices, using our paddles, who wants to lay it on us first? DC?
I'll go.
Okay.
Well, we all walk around with our phones, so just being able to have that ability to give from anywhere, I think, is really important. There are so many tools out there. I know Alex is a fan of the QR code. Having that just placed around the room. But it also helps you engage with a different audience, too. If you're here in Seattle and you have an event that your mom in Kentucky would like to attend, but she can't do the logistics, she can still join in. You can send a code. And that also helps engage people from far and wide to get to know more about your event and about your organization and their mission. That they may not have ever seen before. So I think mobile is really important when it does come to expanding your reach and expanding, like I said, your mission and your statement on, what you're trying to do in the world and your local community.
Looks like you have a follow-up, Mary.
Well, I think that's great. We haven't done this too many times, and I think it's because I have this huge, deep fear about internet at events. And shout out to the tech team in the back. Hey, we see you, because it's a challenge. And sometimes you're in these like deep ballroom spaces where you're like, oh my gosh, the internet's terrible. So if that's a mobile bidding in the room night up, just make sure the internet's top notch if you're going to do that, because it's crucial.
I'm mixed on this. I'll be honest. I really do believe in mobile bidding. I do believe in mobile donations. But there is, so there's the QR code on the tables. It's really easy. Like if we do quite a few luncheons, it's really, really easy to take that envelope out of the, the table captain packet and be like, oh, I'm going to go home and I'm going to mail this in, and it's gone. And it's not that same visual of like, oh gosh, you didn't raise your paddle or you didn't do. So I mean, I'm mixed on it, because I do believe in it and we do it. We definitely have, the QR codes. We've got different options. Which is more effective? It's hard to say. I think that they can both be effective ways. It depends on your community and your event and so many other factors. So maybe the answer is to try, different things to see what is most effective for your organization.
Totally agree. It depends on your organization. So this is not going to be one answer fits all. The one thing I would caution is please don't do 2 or 3 ways of giving at the same time, because it makes it even easier for people to opt out. I really think you got to give people one strong message, like here's how we're going to all raise this goal together. We're going to do it right now. I think, and there are groups who have chosen not to physically raise paddles. It's because they don't want that moment to make the wealth disparities in the room 100% obvious, which is really what you're doing. Like, we call it generosity, but really if someone can raise their paddle for $10,000, they and I are not in the same wealth bracket. We just know that, right? So if your group thrives on like sort of hierarchy, like, oh yeah, we want to make sure we thank those people that have those deep pockets and are being generous, then the paddle raise is definitely the way to go, because they generally like to be seen, right, and get that positive feedback. So it's not a bad thing. It's just know what your values are. And if your values are more like, hey, let's make sure everyone's gift feels equal and equitable, then we tend to go. And I will say I'm not a fan of the QR code. I've just succumbed to the fact that it's a useful tool. But yeah, there's it. I mean, we all know how to use it, which is why it's useful. Okay, I'll stop.
I mean, it's always about going back to the why of a thing, right? The method needs to fit the mission of the moment. I don't know why I just did so many alliterations. But I have strong feelings about mobile bidding and Raise the Paddle and all the inclusive ways, and I'm happy to talk to you about that another time. We're gonna shift shortly to our Q&A. So I do have one last question for the panelists before we get to your questions. So what advice do you have for nonprofit organizations looking to maximize their fundraising efforts while with limited resources or budget constraints? So maximizing fundraising, but we have cash flow is a real thing, right? So hey, Mary, you want to kick us off?
Okay, yes, I do. Might take this a different direction. I think there's lots of answers to this question. I will say that regardless of the amount of time you have, the staff you have, the money, the resources that you have, there's one piece of events that I believe that you, if you're a nonprofit, can keep and should keep, and that's the relationship building part of the process. That looks like a lot of things, like procurement, sponsorship, some maybe specific audience development, matches or challenges, pre-committed gifts, things like that. Those are what I think make the biggest impact if you're doing a fundraiser. If you're trying to raise money, that responsibility is really on you. We can help guide you and things like that, but that is a relationship-based thing. And so the advice that I would have is, yeah, you might have a small budget, but if you can really focus your time and fundraising efforts doing these relationship-building activities for the event, then maybe your budget constraints aren't really as much as you think, because you're going to be able to bring in a lot more money potentially. So that's how I'll start.
Ghazala.
I'm a firm believer in you have to spend money to make money. And I think that's where I know nonprofits are always in that scarcity mode constantly. And I think what happens is you work so hard to save a penny that you're spending dollars. You know, sometimes your highest paid people in your organization are doing the work that they shouldn't be doing. They don't have time to go get sponsors or build relationships because they're worried about the linens for their tables for this event that's coming up. And so those kinds of things, kind of thinking a little bit about the resources, as we talked about, that you have within your organization, and how can you use that better? Is it better to do something a little different, or can I spend some money and hire an amazing tech team so that that we're not trying to find volunteers to run the slide deck for the event, and then that fails, or we didn't buy the internet package, a Wi-Fi package, and so now no one can actually donate. So think through those kinds of things even as you're budgeting, because you can make it work. You can spend money and make money at the same time.
Yeah, I'll just say we have a current client who, a couple clients actually, who've chosen to move their event to a non-prime time, so Sunday afternoon or Tuesday night instead of those Fridays and Saturdays. You actually will not spend as much in your venue. We even have some afternoon events so that they're not serving a whole meal, which really changes the budget for catering. So if that's something that you think would work, right? Just think about your own organization and what people's expectations are and how you want to bring people together. But wow, a beautiful Sunday picnic in an afternoon could be the perfect time to gather and celebrate and support. So just to say, yeah, if things are really tight, you can still gather, because gathering with community is more than just dollars. It's hearts and relationship that we want you to keep building for the future.
I really don't have much to add. I think you guys nailed it. I mean, really, it's about your community and your mission, and it's not about the stuff. It's really about what you're trying to do within your organization. So.
I always tell my clients that, if you're hosting a fundraiser, obviously funds are one of the values in the room, but they're not the only value. It is actually the top value, as Mary said, is the relationships. And if you're not caring for and cultivating those relationships, your fundraiser this year might be great. It's not going to be so great next year. And I want to pony on what Alex said, or pony, whatever, we can dance move there. I want to piggyback on what Alex said about picking dates that you might think are off dates. So everybody's clamoring for Saturdays. Everybody's clamoring for Saturdays. And what does that mean? You get the most expensive catering bill, you get the most expensive venue bill, but it also means, because all of us event professionals are working on Saturdays, that you may not get to partner with the event professional of your dreams because they might already be booked. And so post-pandemic, another one of my favorite innovations is that we've spread the calendar out, and that just doesn't mean the months in which we hold events, it means the days in which we hold events. I love a Wednesday luncheon. Who doesn't? I like a Thursday after work sitchy. Yeah. Sunday brunch? Heck yes. So just think more broadly than Saturdays as a budget saving method. Okay, we promised, and we are about to deliver on our promise that we want to answer your questions. I see you. You're chomping at the bits. What questions do you have? My friend, are you able to come to the microphone front and center here? I mean, looking as sharply dressed as you currently look, there is no reason you shouldn't walk down the runway. Yeah. Talk about suiting up and showing up.
Good morning. My name is Justin James with ComedyAuctioneer.com. My question's for you, Alex. So, here's the question. One of the things we're always dealing with is the waterfall methodology that is employed with fundraising events across the country. We see the inequality that you get hit with. We've talked to a lot of clients. We have worked with them on bringing it from the bottom to the top. We find that people have a large complaint about that. We're always trying to work with that so that we can validate those who cannot donate at the higher dollar amounts. Now, when I'm doing an event, sometimes I'm asking for $25,000 or $50,000. Sometimes they think it's neat to have that sneaky bid already pre-placed. You don't need that, but it's nice. Still, what are your thoughts on bringing it from the bottom to the top, or different ways to validate other members of other donors in the room so that they don't feel bad? Because I see a lot of auctioneers, they get up, by the time they're hitting $100 or $50, I'm like, by any way, is anybody ready to donate $100? And you can hear it. So your thoughts?
No, I appreciate that. And just to kind of circle back to community-centric fundraising, it is still fundraising. Don't forget, we're not afraid of money. We want the money, and we want the person that's capable of and willing to donate the $50,000, the $25,000, the $10,000. We definitely want that. It's not about like, very wealthy people, you're no longer welcome here. And I think that has been a little bit of a misunderstanding throughout these last couple of years as folks are trying out. They're like, oh, now we have a community event. That means we can only ask people for $50. It's like, oh, that's gonna not be sustainable, frankly, right? Because we need to pay our staff well. We need to, keep our programs really thriving. So I think it is, I would follow the lead of your client and what their values are, but having that conversation around like, hey, do you want to, instead of showing the gifts as like this hierarchical thing, we like to do a big graphic on the screen sometimes. It's like, hey, let's fill our collective goal. We have a collective goal for today. We're gonna raise $300,000, and then it's beautiful to kind of graphically see that come in. And I love to include the sponsors in that as well, because it's great that we have sponsorship dollars. Again, we're gonna talk budgeting later, but like, let's take the money from the folks that have it, and that way everyone can be together, right? So it's not so much about like we have to then say everyone's name at the $100 level, because then the event will be 19 hours long, and no one can really sit there for it. So I think just keep connecting with your donors and offering them those options of like, hey, are we doing this in order to give positive feedback to our biggest donors, or are we trying to like collectively meet a goal? Thank you. Yeah.
Come forward. You who is standing. I will also say, I agree, we don't need to leave our major donors by the wayside. It's not that we don't value them. It is that we don't have to always center them, who are centered in the world already, in conversation and in life, in the room of our event, right? But we just have opportunities to use their gifts slightly differently, right? And so these are, again, about caring for relationships, conversations you have before the event. And I also love the participation point. Yes, friend?
Why do you hate silent auctions?
Okay, I will, Because they are so much work, they require a ton of staff time, and the return on your investment is very, very low. So in most events, you're spending probably 80% of the work on your silent auction, and you're seeing less than 20%. I actually do love a silent auction, truly, but it's for entertainment. That's how we look at it, is make it entertainment. You can have 15, 20 items, and you can have a fun time where people are enjoying themselves and writing down bid numbers or mobile bidding, whatever, and it can be fun in that respect. But again, it's entertainment. If you are thinking that's your biggest dollar value and your income stream, it's not going to be. And if it is, it probably means that you have way too many items in your auction.
DC, I know you want to follow up. I'm going to suggest that whoever has our next question, go ahead and make your way to the microphone if you're able. DC.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I did have a customer who kept saying, like, during our meetings, we need more stuff, we need more stuff, we need more stuff. And I finally had to stop him and say, it's not about the stuff, it's about your mission. So if you can take the time to get off of that stuff and actually focus on your mission and telling people about why they're coming, why they should be here, what they can expect, and use that time to cultivate your clients or your guests. That's where that collateral should be in my mind. I love a silent auction too. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but when it comes to really planning out the actual event, the silent auction is not the most important thing.
And just to give you some data to back this up, depending on this auction software that you're using, some of them can pull really, really great reports that tell you the value of the item versus the amount that it sold for. They can give you a percentage, so you're saying, oh, this was only 30% of it. And that's when you can really justify how much time it took to put the item together and if it's worth it. So you can use that.
And to add one more quick thing is that what happens with a silent auction is your board members and sometimes your staff are spending so much time on that instead of what they really should be spending time on, which is the relationships, which is okay, I'm going to go after this $50 gift card instead of making that really tough call I have to make to a donor. And that's what happens. You're bogged down in oh, well, I can get this. I got 20 silent auction items, but I never got to my donor calls. And that's part of it, is it's a distraction, and that's really why I think all of us say spend your time and money and resources elsewhere.
All right, we have a few minutes left for Q&A, and then I have to make a couple closing announcements before I leave. Thank you, fabulously green-clothed human. What question do you have?
This is actually kind of a follow-up to the silent auction. When I joined my organization, I fought the good fight and we got rid of the silent auction. Most people, all those reasons, most people did not notice. However, we did have a few people commenting in our surveys that, they perhaps can't afford to put, $1,500, $2,000, whatever for the live auction. So how do we make it more inclusive? Because even though this is for a gala, it is a little bit more exclusive. Sometimes companies send their employees who may not necessarily have the means, right, for a live auction or fund a need. So I guess what other ways would you suggest to raise money, from them to make them feel more included?
Yeah, I hope whatever your fund a need goes down to a level that's that $50 level so that they can join you with philanthropy. I always feel like a direct gift is a better, it's a better relationship than a transaction. So, but if transactions are oh, we have to sell people something or they'll feel like they didn't have a good time. We're Americans, we love to buy things. Sell them a raffle ticket and have a raffle prize that's really awesome. Like something that maybe could have been in your live, but instead you're all right, we're gonna do $25 raffle tickets. Hopefully everyone in the room can buy 1 or 2 or 4 of those, and then you can. I feel like that's a nice kind of offer when you're being asked for silent auction.
Okay, I'm going to keep it pushing because we have one last person who wants to ask a question, but I promise we will be available for questions after this moment. So yes, hello, welcome. What's your question?
Hi, so I manage hotels and catering. From the hotel venue standpoint, how can I make my property kind of like the property for events like these? I have a lot of inquiries and I've been able to book a lot, but I feel that I don't really speak their language when it comes to budget.
I was going to say that is probably the case. I mean, we do a lot of the negotiations for our clients. I think all of us do in terms of working with venues. So I know a lot of venues prefer when there can be a planner potentially. But if you don't have that, and not saying that every organization can have a planner, I would say the one thing that we do is we talk about concessions. And so if you are able to do any type of concessions for a nonprofit, whether it is a discounted entree price,
Corkage fee.
Corkage fee, parking, valet, a one-night stay.
Volunteer meal.
Yes, auctions. There are.
Sponsor the Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
please.
Yes.
Sponsor the
So
Wi-Fi.
those kinds of things, thank you. Those were great ideas. I didn't know that one. That's a good one. So those kinds of things, if you can kind of talk through that with people who are coming in, and the one thing too, I will say this to nonprofits out there: don't hide your budget from people. Like, that's the other thing, is please be open about what you have to spend. It's okay. We're not going to go up to meet it. People aren't going to do that. So if you have a rental budget, if you've got a venue and food and beverage budget, tell the person you're talking to. It will save you so much time and energy. And we all want to be partners in helping you, and that's the key. Is tell people your budget, please.
All right. We have reached the conclusion of our time for this panel, but I promised you that we would be available for additional conversation, being in community, answering questions. So here's how you can do that. Some of us will be heading down to the speaker meet and greet downstairs following this. Of course, you can just walk with us in the hall, chit chat. Some will be walking the floor. You can look for GFS in their pink jackets. They'll be on the floor downstairs, but some of us will head to the speaker meet and greet. But if you really want actual time with these event professionals, these event planners, to get into the weeds a little bit about any one of these topics, please come back at the 1 o'clock hour, where they're hosting Nonprofit Event Mastermind, a deep dive into the magic of planning your smooth and successful event. It's not going to be a presentation. You will sit at tables based on your topic. Maybe you want to do radical budgeting. What topic will you cover?
Can't remember right
Okay.
now.
There's going to be different topics, different tables. You
Great
choose
topics,
yours. And you're going to get a chance to pick their brains for free right here. So with that, can we get a round of applause for our panelists, please? Yes, Mary, Ghazala, Alex, and DC. You can find them all on your app and in your program if you wish to follow up with them. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to see you out on the floor.